Hi, welcome back to The Broad Perspective here on the Broad Perspective Network. I'm glad you're with us today, or coming back from our commercial break.
Right.
My name is Vivian Komori.
And I'm Katie Curley Nelson.
And we are being joined with part 2 of Santos Bonacci. And if you didn't catch last week's show, we're not going to spend a lot of time reviewing. We're going to ask you to go to the archives when we're done, and you can watch or listen to last week's show, and it'll get you up to date, because there's a lot of information, and even in this short period of time that we have left for today's show, we're not going to even remotely begin to cover it all.
So you can go to thebroadperspective.com, and you can go to the archives and look up part 1 of the show.
Yes, and we'll have that on the archives. So once again, if you didn't get a chance to hear last week's show, go to the archives and listen to it, and you'll catch up with what we're talking about, because the information that Santos is kindly, very generously, through a lot of research and reading and time and his wisdom, and he's brilliant beyond description, he's sharing it with us, with our listeners today, and we have a really heartfelt gratitude. He's in Melbourne, Australia. He's up in the wee hours of the morning. It's very cold there today, and he's sharing this with us. He's sharing this with us, and he has YouTube sites he's sharing with us as well. And so we really need to express our gratitude, but tune into his YouTube videos. Let him know how much you appreciate this information, because there's not a lot of it out there. I don't think very many people have put the puzzle pieces together to the degree that this man has. And
in the big picture sense.
In the big picture sense, exactly. And what does that mean to us? So, anyway, welcome, Santos. We're glad you're with us today. Thank you once again for your time.
Thank you for having me.
And we left last week's show. We were talking about...
Oh my gosh, so many things.
So many things. And I think one of the things I wanted to ask you when we came on the show this week, one of our friends, I have a good friend who is a very good astrologer. I like him a lot. He does something called Nostradamus astrology, and he uses a 13th sign, which changes people's astrological sign in a lot of cases. Are you familiar?
Ophiuchus?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if that's how you say it. Something like that. Ophiuchus?
Yes.
Are you familiar with that?
Absolutely, yes. In my Know Thyself Part 2,
okay,
I draw on the whiteboard. I have a beautiful big whiteboard there, and I draw there the constellation of Ophiuchus. Now, Ophiuchus is a very interesting sign of the zodiac, because it sits there and it certainly does occupy, I think it's 19 degrees of the belt of the zodiac.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, if you see my video presentation, Know Thyself Part 2.
I've seen most of it, not all of it.
Yes. Well, I'm now encouraging the listeners to watch that, and this is what they will see. I draw up the plane of the Milky Way galaxy. Goes straight through the middle of the board. So there you have the Milky Way galaxy, and going through that at 60 degrees is the ecliptic of the sun.
Right.
That's the path that the sun takes as it goes through the signs of the zodiac. Now, where it crosses the galactic plane, I've drawn this on the board. The galactic plane goes straight through the middle of the board horizontally, and then at 60 degrees, you've got the ecliptic of the sun. Where it crosses, where they intersect, that is the center of the Milky Way galaxy.
Okay.
And Scorpio sits above that, and Sagittarius sits below that. And the arrow of Sagittarius is pointing to that center, and the tail of Scorpio is also pointing to that center. In between the tail of Scorpio and the arrow of Sagittarius is the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And Ophiuchus has 1 foot right there. And superimposed over the Milky Way galaxy, I've put a figure of a serpent eating its tail, the Ouroboros, because that's where it is. In fact, if you see a product by a video by David Flynn has done a lot of research on.
How do you spell his last name?
Flynn.
Okay, David Flynn. Okay, got it.
And he shows how the serpent, the Ouroboros, he's got a few videos. One's called the Ouroboros. Check it out. And you'll see that there is a serpent there biting its tail. And in the mouth of the serpent, that is the very center of the Milky Way galaxy. This is amazing stuff, you know, the ancients knew all this. Anyway, so 1 foot of the fucus is in there, another foot is standing on the scorpion, on the red star, called Antares. And a fucus means serpent bearer, so he's carrying this serpent. Now the serpent's head, serpent's caput, is right next to Libra, the scales of Libra, which is, I've proven, to be the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That sits on the scale, the equinox. Libra always sits there on the equinox. And when the sun passes through there, the sun is eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because the sun has come from summer and it goes down to winter through those scales in September. And they are the scales of the judgment of the sun. The sun goes through there and gets judged. And then Scorpio awaits in November, bites the sun, that's Judas Iscariot, backbiter. And then Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, is the Garden of Gethsemane, where Peter betrays the Christ 3 times. And he cuts off the ear of Malchus. Malchus means the Lord, the sun. So Sagittarius cuts off the sun's ear, or jabs the Achilles in the heel. And therefore the sun goes through its journey, and we see the astrotheology of this. It's so plain to see. And what I've done on the whiteboard is I've shown how Virgo is right there above Libra, and she's the virgin who eats from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. As the sun goes through Virgo, it's betrayed. And I also show that is from the Bible, where it's, and he shall bruise you in the heel, but you shall bruise on the head. And all of the book of Genesis is based on those stars and that part of the zodiac. And I explain it there. So a fucus is very, very, very important. Yes. Now, I don't know how one can use that 13th sign in astrology, because I believe that astrology is based on the fact that the mind of God is 12. It's a dodecahedron. But then one can argue that 12 is rounded off to 13, just like 7 is rounded off to 8 an octave. So, the astrology that I study is Marcus Manilius, Ptolemy, Firmicus Maternus, people like that were well founded on the very, very ancient art and science of astrology, which was founded in Egypt and Babylon.
Now, the other question I would then have is, this is an ancient science, and it's been around for many, many years, and how did these people thousands of years ago have this knowledge when they didn't have current technology, the current telescopes that we have now, and the ability to have this way of seeing things close up? They didn't have that like we do now. How did they know this? That's what just blows my mind.
Yes, well, you see, this is it. If you don't know the science of as above, so below, you can never have explanations for this. And that's why the consensus explanation is the historical consensus rubbish, is that, well, we were cavemen, and we just evolved, and now here we are at the peak of our evolution. Here we are at the better end. There has never ever been any better consciousness on this planet before.
Yeah,
right?
okay.
So this is the linear historical. This is what I'm trying to debunk, and not trying. I am debunking. It's over. It's over for the fictionalist. It's over for Rome. Its fictional lying days are over. It's over. We have the internet, we have the information now, and they've been busted. It's all that history is pure fiction. We are actually the worst. We've come through the worst part. There have been waves of consciousness coming and going on this planet for millions of years. Millions of years. And many races have been seeded on this planet and they've gone back to the stars whence they came. It's one of the most precious places in the universe for doing this. And we are of a magnificent race. This current wave of consciousness coming through, this is one of the glorious ones. And the whole universe is on standby to see what's going to happen in the next few years to this race.
Right.
There's extraterrestrial entities everywhere just waiting to see what on earth is going to happen. There you go. Pardon the pun. What on earth is going to happen? The earth is being transformed. Mother Earth is being transformed. She will become a star, as planets are embryos.
Right.
They are not born. Planets are embryos. Suns are born. Stars are born. And so we can see the order of where we are. We are the humans, the heroes. We are in the middle kingdom. We have mortality below us and immortality above us. We can choose which way to go. We have that potential, that ability. It's been granted to us. We can go up. We have what it takes. We can grow up. We can go up the ladder and be astral beings and be reunited with our soulmates. Because we are, in fact, half souls. And our soulmates reunite with us in the fourth chakra above the head, in the astral kingdoms, and that is the point in which we attain immortality, and we can never participate of mortality again. And this is explained in the book The Lost Light of Egypt by Thomas H. Burgoyne. I recommend it, Volume 1 and Volume 2, to read as the greatest source of spiritual wisdom and understanding. Together with Walter Russell, I would suggest those two be read immediately.
Immediately. Run out and get them right now.
Yes, stop breathing. Read it. Yes,
I love it.
it's urgent. It's urgent. Look, I want to share something with you.
Okay.
Alfred Lord Tennyson wrote, "Self-reverence, self-knowledge, self-control. These three alone lead to sovereign power." Self-reverence, self-knowledge, self-control. Now, self-knowledge, wouldn't that be man, know thyself, and you will know the heavens and all of its gods?
Yes.
It would.
Yes.
And Walt Whitman said, "And nothing, not God, is greater to one than oneself is." So the
Get
Hopis,
so smart.
the Hopis said,
Yes.
the Hopi elders said, "All that we do now must be done in a sacred manner and in celebration, because we are the ones we have been waiting for."
Ooh, I like that.
That's good.
What-
Yeah.
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
you like it because it resonates with, it's true. And you've heard it, I've heard, a lot of people are quoting this expression, you see, but they don't realise where it comes from, the Hopi elders. You see, we are the ones we have been waiting for. They've known it all along. They've had a relationship with the Great Spirit all along. White man came along, the Christian, the corporate Christian came along, Columbus, and stole these lands of the spiritual owners of it. And Captain Cook came to this land and destroyed the culture here and stole the land of the Aborigines. And they murdered all the Aborigines in 1850. The last Aborigine, I forget the name, it will come to me in a moment, was killed, died of disease. And there's no more native Aboriginals in Tasmania.
I didn't know that.
That's a fact. And that happened in 1851, I believe. They also killed off the Tasmanian tiger, the thylacine. It's how many animals, the buffalo in the States, have been made extinct, the dodo bird. I mean, these people, they are materialists. They are marauding capitalists. That's what they've been called.
Which leads me to this question. Do you want to finish that thought before I ask this question?
No, that's fine.
That seems to be the majority of humanity. That the majority of humanity, and this is my judgmental opinion, seems to be very materialistic. And that's on every level, on every class of people, or, you know, even the poor, still there's a certain level of materialism. And there is not a lot of reverence for anything else, any other species, our planet in general. And is humanity redeemable, generally speaking? And I know when you mentioned the Hopis, there's the prophecy of the blue kachina, which has to do with stars, right?
Yes.
And what do you interpret that to mean? They say the blue kachina will be coming back.
Well, and there's also the red kachina. Now,
And the red kachina, yes.
Possibly they were aware of Sirius being in a binary with our sun,
Right.
And because when Sirius is moving away from our sun, it is redshifted. And in fact, all the ancient astronomers said that Sirius was red. And exactly around 2,000 years ago, astronomers like Marcus Manilius, in fact, in his book Astronomica, he calls Sirius blue. He says it is a beautiful blue star. And so it's obviously going red to blue as it goes through this 24,000-year cycle, as Walter Cruttenden explains in his book The Lost Star of Myth and Time. Possibly this blue kachina and red kachina could be in reference to this. I'm not saying that it is, because I'm not really familiar enough with the Hopi kachina prophecies. I've seen them. I've seen them a lot, you know. They're referenced all the time, but I haven't gone into them. So I can't, you know, really give a good, solid answer on that. But they definitely knew that there would be a time when we would realize that we're the ones that we're waiting for, because a new wave of consciousness would come through. And in the Christian system, this is called the harvest of the wheat.
Yes.
From the wheat. And there is a lot of wheat. Yes, there is a lot of wheat. When you look around, there's the wheat being harvested, and of course there's the weeds. There's a lot of weeds. And we see people, the herd, the common herd, which does not want to wake up. They are intoxicated with materialism, and they believe in the Roman Empire more than they believe in the kingdom to come, which is the kingdom that we are participating of right now, the kingdom of higher consciousness, the return of the Christ. Plutarch, in his book Obsolescence of Oracles, had this to say about what would happen to these souls who are not getting it. And this is why in my voice, there will always be urgency about this subject. I'm not sleeping about and becoming a hermit and running off to the mountains to meditate and look after me. I'm staying with everyone else to try and make up that part of the critical mass which will awaken the rest of mankind from their slumber.
We so appreciate that.
Yeah, and that's why I'm talking today, right now. I won't say that there are other things that I'd rather be doing. I would rather be teaching this. I would rather be sharing this than anything else in the world. But I would also love to be just enjoying myself up in the mountains in the Victorian Alps where my brother lives, and just and he's offered me to stay there and live with him, and he loves my work. He's big supporter of what I'm doing, and my family have mostly been saved from the Jehovah's Witnesses by this knowledge. I would rather just be looking after me and really getting my vibration up so that I'm just really going to participate in the big rewards. But I'm here to do my bit like you are, girls. And this is what Plutarch said in Moralia, in his Obsolence of the Oracles. Others postulate a transmutation for bodies and souls alike, in the same manner in which water is seen to be generated from earth, air from water, and fire from air. As their substance is borne upward, even so from men into heroes, and from heroes into demigods, the better souls obtain their transmutation. You see, that's why we're here. We're transmuting. We are lead into gold. But from the demigods, a few souls still, in the larger reach of time, because of supreme excellence, come, after being purified, to share completely in divine qualities. So he's talking about our time when we would share in divine qualities by purifying ourselves. The purification of the soul. We purify our minds, our souls, our physical body by the way we think and act and eat and drink. And we just grow. But he says, with some of these souls, it comes to pass that they do not maintain control over themselves, but yield to temptation and are again clothed with mortal bodies and have a dim and darkened life, like mist or vapor. Interesting.
It gives me chills.
Yeah, wow. We're going to take a commercial break. We're going to be back in just a minute with more of The Broad Perspective and Santos Bonacci. Stay tuned.
It appears we may be living in turbulent times. Are you prepared? Find out. Go to www.72hours.com. That's www.72hours.com for more information on home safety, pet safety, water, resources, training, and community support. We can always hope for the best, but it's good to be prepared for the worst. Get involved, get ready, get informed. Go to www.72hours.com for more information.
This is brought to you by The Broad Perspective, a public service announcement. Welcome back to The Broad Perspective here on the Broad Perspective Network. I'm Vivian Komori.
I'm Katie Curley Nelson.
And we're visiting with Santos Bonacci. We are learning a lot.
So much. I'm going to have to go back and listen to this.
I know.
Just to kind of grasp some of this.
I'll be listening to it time and time again. So when we left, we were talking about, well, where did we leave off? He just read a wonderful passage. I tend to vacillate back and forth. There's times when I think, I don't blame the powers that be. If humanity just needs to go the way of the dinosaurs, I get it, I understand. Because I think that, I don't know, that collectively I'm not sure we've had a whole lot of redeeming qualities. But there are just a few that, you're right, you gave me a lot of hope when you said, we're helping assist everyone else to wake up, to understand that there is something greater, a greater consciousness is forthcoming.
Now, on that wave of consciousness that you're talking about, now that was already pre-planned, is that correct?
Well, it's excuse me, it's part of the 24,000 year cycle of precession of the equinoxes. As our sun gets closer to its sister sun, Sirius, in its trajectory through the elliptical orbit, it speeds up as it gets closer and it gets nearer to that sun, and our consciousness increases, and that is what we call the golden age. This happened 12,000 years ago. Simple as that. It happened 12,000 years ago, and we have declined ever since in consciousness.
Yeah.
Through the silver, through the bronze, and into the Iron Age, and now we are so thick. I mean, you made a good point there. I think it was you, Vivian, where you said that how can we blame anyone? Well, this is it. We can't really, because we've all suffered with lack of consciousness. But look, the people who have put themselves in positions of power and the elites, they are doing. What they are doing is they've put themselves in the place of God and administering the affairs of the Christian kingdom on this earth. Right. You see, so they've made this fictional corporation and this fictional concept whereby everything goes back to the historical Jesus.
Right. And
everything is run on that paradigm. Everything, the whole thing. Yes. They've made us believe that the camera pins down back to him, which it doesn't. They've made us believe that he set up a kingdom on earth via Peter, and he gave him the keys of the kingdom, and he said, Peter, you must go acquiring souls and possessions for the kingdom of God down here on earth. So they started administering this Peter church, whereby they would gather Peter's pence, and where they would gather taxes for Peter. And that's the Church of Constantine in Rome, and they've been doing it since. See, the donation of Constantine, that's a document in history in which Constantine gives, I think it's Sylvester, his pope at the time, the power to collect taxes, because Peter granted this to the church. And so this is Rome. Rome runs our courts. Our courts use Latin expressions: prosecutor, attorney general, writ, summons.
Habeas corpus.
Yes. It's the Latin church, and the Latin church is the Saturnian church. Saturn is Latin. One only needs to read the great classical Roman writers, like Virgil in the Iliad, who says, we Romans, we Latins, never forget that we are Saturn's people. Now, Saturn is also connected with the dark sun, and that was the Aten, the disk in the sky of Akhenaten, the monotheist, the first monotheist in history. Now, so this Saturn church, you see, Saturn is the Grim Reaper, and he sits on the bench, the banco, the bank. Mm-hmm. Where the judge that sits on the bench, he's working for the banks. Right. And like hand in glove, the judiciary and the banksters, they're just collecting on the monetization of sin. You see, they've monetized sin because they are...
If you're going to monetize anything, you might as well monetize sin, right?
Yeah, exactly. You've been a naughty boy, so we're going to summons you to a hearing. And you have to confess to good old Padre sitting on the magistrate sitting on the bench, who's collecting money for the bank, because they get paid if they win. Yeah. They don't care about justice. They think in terms of how many wins can we push through this sausage factory.
Very true.
And cash in the bonds, because they create a constructive trust. Every court case is a constructive trust, and they're administering trust law. Now, Dean Clifford is the best guy in Canada who's teaching all this. Get on to Dean Clifford now. He is the best. Dean Clifford. His videos are the best to understand the trust law that is going on, and Rome is administering this.
Okay. You're giving us
and so we see, that they have kept us busy. The Inquisition is alive and well.
Wow, I don't like that.
No, we don't. And You remember the story of David and Goliath, don't you?
Sure.
Yeah. Well, we are David, and we've arrived on the scene. And I suggest that they put themselves into their new facilities, the FEMA concentration camps, detention centres. I suggest they start hurting themselves in there right now, and not to wait for us to do that with the justice that is coming. I reckon they want to go in there right now, the Rothschilds, the Queen, the Pope, the Cardinals, the Bilderbergers, the Trilateralists, the Bush types, the George Bush types, from Prescott to Grant to George Bush Sr. to the little boy.
George W.
Yeah,
George
because
W.
from my understanding, the ruling elite are onto it, that this house of cards that they've built is starting to fall
It's
apart.
starting to collapse.
Oh, it's over. It is over. It's gone. Rome. It's all Rome. Please don't think that America has any power without Rome.
I know
Please
that.
don't think that.
Yeah.
It's all run by
America-
the Vatican, right?
Yes, the Vatican just treats America and its constitution as though that's a settlement. It's another settlement. It's just a settlement. In fact, that's why they have the Bank of International Settlements, because we are on a settlement. In fact, the Treaty of 1493 with the Columbus family, Columbus meaning the Holy Dove, Christopher meaning bearer of Christ, the Treaty of Tesadillos that they signed in Portugal gave the Vatican all the land of the Americas.
Right. I heard that. Yeah.
Yes, and so you're living on a settlement, people. You're living on Bob Dylan's Maggie's farm. And it's a plantation, and you've been enslaved.
Yeah.
And time to reclaim dominion, and time to tell the Vatican, you have to shut up doors. We don't require your services anymore, you buffoons and criminal, evil elite. Your time's up and it's over. Repent or perish. And they will. In one
What do
way
we
or
do? What's
another.
the first step?
Oh, the first step is this, knowing this information that I'm sharing with you. That's the first step. Know who you are. Like Walt Whitman said, there is nothing, not even God outside of you, that is greater than you. And the words of Leonardo da Vinci, if you find from your own experience that something is a fact and it contradicts what some authority has written down, then you must abandon the authority and base your reasoning on your own findings. This is what I'm sharing. I'm showing people clearly that the facts of the Jesus fiction story is based on the Julian Corporation and the Flavians and the Constantine family and the Pippins and all these buffoons, the Piso family and the Rothschilds. And they own this corporation and they've sold it as history. It's not. It's absolutely wrong. It's erroneous. It can be proved beyond a doubt, and I've done it in my videos, that it is all a house of cards. It's a fiction. Roman's calendar is over. The Julian Gregorian calendar is over. People waking up at 6 o'clock in the morning at the alarm to race off to fulfill their jobs, that day is over. People are realizing all we need is food to put in our mouths, a little bit of shelter and some clothes, and that's it. We don't need the new iPad. We don't need the new Mitsubishi. We don't need another investment property or 2 or 3 or 4. They are just molecules in motion. I think people have woken up to the spiritual reality, and materialism and capitalism and Rome's calendar and alphabet and law and democracy and all its pathetic services and all its Christian incorporated churches can go to hell. And they will. And it's wakey times, and it has to be done.
Well, I think you're right, and I think they're starting to run scared. I got an email a couple weeks ago that the Vatican has requested, it's not even optional, that all cardinals and bishops have to be in Rome on October, I want to say the 26th. I don't remember the exact date.
Some kind of emergency
But
meeting.
it's some kind of emergency meeting, and you have to wonder what's up their sleeves when It's that urgent that that they all converge on Rome.
Yes, they've had a lot of these meetings lately, and I suppose what they're going to do on the 26th of October, which is 2 days before the 28th, which according to Ian Lungold and Carl Cullerman is the end of the 16 billion year wave of human consciousness. 2 days before that 0 point happens, they're going to have a meeting. I suppose it would be to tell each other, look, you buffoons, take off your stupid costumes, you look like monkeys, and you've been acting like monkeys, and let's stop the trickery and the roguery, and our energy of the Piscean age is over, and we've got no business left to do. And then, yeah, I suppose they're going to be just sitting around, you know, pointing to each other and laughing at each other and going, look at you, you buffoon, you've wasted your whole life in spiritual depravity, abusing mankind and poisoning and causing wars throughout the planet, and Judgment Day has come and you're not ready, you buffoon, but you're dressed in a costume, aren't you? Yeah. Costumes mean nothing, whether it's a policeman, whether it's an army officer.
Yeah.
Any of these buffoons, even bank managers with their suits, with their Versace suits, well, they're going to be in for a rude awakening. They're pathetic. They all believe in climbing the corporate ladder. And as John Lennon said in Working Class Heroes, yes, there's plenty of room at the top still, as long as you learn how to smile as you kill. And these people, I've seen them. I see them rushing off to work. They're all killers. They're killing their own families. They're killing themselves, trying to climb the corporate ladder, serving Rome with jobs. What for? Why do you need jobs? Well, why? Just because you believe in the American dream, materialism.
Yeah.
That's the American dream, materialism. It's not freedom anymore, like Benjamin Franklin said. I've given you a republic. If you can keep it, you buffoons.
Yes, exactly.
But sure enough, the banksters came in and the politicians slept with them, and the industrialists like your J.P. Morgans and your Rockefellers come in with their oil and their money and controlling the electricity supply and everything else, every control. And America slipped into a democracy, didn't it? And a democracy is mob rule.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right.
And the mob, I can guarantee you, if it's not 51%, will be all those corporate Christian organisations causing division in your community. The Baptists are not there to unite you. The Jehovah's Witnesses are not there to unite you. Neither are the Mormons, neither are the Pentecostals, or any of them. And we need to wake up to this. They are there to interpret and divide, and conquer. And conquer they have. They are the voter base for George Bushy to bring democracy to Iraq.
Well said. We got to take another commercial break.
Yeah.
Stay tuned for more of The Broad Perspective and Santos Bonacci. We'll be right back.
BPN. Join the awakening.
The Broad Perspective Network is a portal designed to reveal a new perspective and reality to those who wish to know the truth about the world we live in and our role in it.
BPN. See beyond the illusion.
Welcome back to The Broad Perspective here on the Broad Perspective Network. We're wrapping up our conversation with Santos Bonacci, and what conversation it has been. Wow. So much information. Oh, by the way, I'm Vivian Komori.
I'm Katie Curley Nelson.
I forget to do that. I forget everything. But anyway, Santos is visiting with us from Melbourne, Australia. And now, have you always been in Australia?
Yes.
Really?
Yes, 48 years.
48 years. Wow.
But you're Italian, right?
Yes, well, yes. Born here, but my parents came to Australia from southern Italy, Calabria, in 56, and they married here in 59, I think. I was born in 63, Baptised a Catholic up in the tobacco farms. My father had a tobacco farm in Myrtleford, Victoria, in the Victorian Alps, and most of my relatives went to that part of Victoria to grow tobacco, and they are still there. And I'm hoping one day to go back there. It's only a 3-hour drive from Melbourne, where I am now, but a lot of my family is also around here in the suburb of Melbourne called Narre Warren, in which I live. Yes.
Very, very interesting. That's one place I've never been to Australia, although we have a daughter in Tasmania, an adopted daughter in Tasmania.
Yes, you told me.
Yeah, I miss her a lot. One of the things I wanted to mention to you, Santos, is my husband and I were at a Catholic wedding this weekend on Saturday. And when you were talking about everything's falling apart, and it is, I don't know how people are going to handle this, because I have never seen such robots. It became so apparent to me, the people in this wedding, how they would hold their, and I see, I'm not being Catholic, I really don't know these rituals, but they would put their arms out like they were Frankenstein, you know, as the priest said to do, and they would stand there with their arms out or do whatever, but they reminded me of Frankenstein. They would follow so blind, all of them. And the ritual was so powerful, and I thought to myself, what are these people going to do when their world is shattered, that all this has been a lie? And I think that's the case with a lot of these devotees of any following on this planet.
Well, for some it will be very bitter, but for some it will be very sweet, like it was for me. For me to see that the truth that I once knew, the truth of the Jehovah's Witness, to see how untruthful it is,
right,
gave me great joy. You know, I wasn't bitter. I was not bitter. I'm angry at the fact that if one can sense some anger in my tone, which I suppose there would have to be, it's more urgency than anger. I don't think people realise that. But I'm not angry that I spent 20 years going down that path and then awakening and realising that that was not the true way. Right. I'm happy because I built the proper foundation for my spirituality. You see, their job, the job of the fiction, the job of teaching that Jesus is a man and the 12 disciples are a man and everything like that, that is a work of art. And it's specifically designed, it's called the literalist version, the literalist rendition of the Bible. It's designed for 12-year-olds and under.
Yeah.
And the Jews call that Pradesh. See, the word paradise, there's 4 consonants, paradise, P-R-D-S. And Pradesh is the first level. Remez is the next level. Drash, which they get midrash from, is the 3rd level, and the mystical deepest level is Sud, and that's the word paradise. But you see, all these churchgoers are feeding on Pradesh. They don't get it. They don't get it because they haven't been introduced to the higher level of the explanation of the Bible. So they are the ones who see but do not, who look but do not see, who have eyes but cannot see, and ears that cannot hear. And the ones that Satan, the devil, has blinded the minds of the unbelievers, they in fact are unbelievers. The believers are the unbelievers.
Interesting.
That's how it is. That's how it works. We were not supposed to be fooled in this valley of deception by the priestcraft. They are the hypocrites. Hypocrites in the Greek, ancient Greek plays means someone who is puts a mask on.
Right.
He's a hypocrite because he's an actor in the play and he has this mask. And that's who the actors in the play are, the priests. The priests continue to do their theatre shows. And it's all theatre and it's deception. And they are the hypocrites, the hypocrites. We were not supposed to be deceived by them. We were warned as we came down to this place to remember who we are. And never forget who you are. And don't let anyone steal your godship away from you and your power and your support and energy and strength and vitality, because they are leeches.
Well said. You're right on. So then the next question is, as we come into this awareness and we realize that we have to know ourselves, because I do think, and maybe I'm wrong, but perhaps you can enlighten me, maybe I'm way off base on this, that we are headed into some challenging times. As all this does, as these constructs do start to fall apart, and we start to understand that things are not what they have appeared to be, many people are not going to react well. Some will, some won't, but I do think that we could have some chaos. Am I correct there, or am I way off base?
It remains to be seen.
Okay.
It remains to be seen. Look, it's going on already in the Middle East.
Yes.
There's murder and chaos in those countries. You think Egypt's got on its feet yet? No way. No way. It's got a long way to go. Libya. So, the Mediterranean is on fire.
Right.
Now, whether the exact same model will repeat itself in America and in Australia and the rest of Europe remains to be seen. We are the co-creators of this creation. It's just a dream. This world, this kingdom of Rome, it's a mirage. It's just a fleeting instance. It's the age of Pisces in all of its depravity, the Iron Age. We've become killers here. There's been so much bloodshed in the last 2,000 years, my God. Humans preying on humans. Animals don't even do that.
Yeah, you're right
We're
about
killers.
that.
We're killers. And the priestcraft has not benefited us in any of this.
No.
So this awakening, we are the co-creators, and we are the ones that can bring back peace and balance. And that's why these interviews that you're putting on is going to be a blessing to mankind. And I praise you and encourage you to continue and keeping up the good work, Vivian and Katie. It's great to have the support.
Well, I
And
appreciate that. Thank you.
hopefully we can affect the change and soften the blows of what may come down the line. But surely, if there's going to be some chaos and trouble, it will be followed by peace and order. It must be. It will be.
I like that. That's very encouraging. I know we are living in the age of Pisces, and we're moving into it's the dawning of the age of Aquarius.
That's right.
Do you have a timeline for that? I know we're on the precipice.
Well, that's it. The precipice is called a cusp.
Right.
And the cusp energy is pretty much the same as what the sign has to offer. You see, Pisces is mutable water, so we've been in an emotional, mutable state, a changing emotional state, because that's what Pisces represents, mutable water. Water is emotion, the earth signs are senses, the air signs in astrology are mental, and the fire signs are intuitive. So the emotions have been disturbed, but fixed air of Aquarius, air is another word for air in the Bible is spirit. Nevma, spirit. So we are going to be baptized with the Holy Spirit. The water bearer, Aquarius, is pouring down spiritual rains on us. And as that cusp energy thickens and grows and the Piscean water energy dissipates and recedes, the stronger we become, the more spirit and consciousness we acquire, and the more power we gain.
Wow. 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 I like that a lot. I like it a lot. Thank you.
Yes.
I want to once again remind our listeners to go to your website, which is universaltruthschool.com. And you've got a lot of information on there.
He cuts off the ear of Malchus. Malchus means the Lord, the sun. So Sagittarius cuts off the sun's ear or jabs the Achilles in the heel. and therefore the sun goes through its journey, and we see the astrotheology of this. It's so plain to see, and what I've done on the whiteboard is I've shown how Virgo is right there above Libra, and she's the virgin who eats from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. As the sun goes through Virgo, it's betrayed. And I also show that is from the Bible, where it's, and he shall bruise you in the heel, but you shall bruise on the head. And all of the book of Genesis is based on those stars and that part of the zodiac. And I explain it there. So Ophiuchus is very, very, very important. Yes. Okay. Now, I don't know how one can use that 13th sign in astrology, because I believe that astrology is based on the fact that the mind of God is 12. It's a dodecahedron. But then one can argue that 12 is rounded off to 13, just like 7 is rounded off to 8 an octave. Okay. So, the astrology that I study is Marcus Manilius, Ptolemy, Firmicus Maternus, people like that, Boris, he's got a few videos. One's called the Ouroboros. Check it out, and you'll see that there is a serpent there biting its tail. And in the mouth of the serpent, that is the very center of the Milky Way galaxy. This is amazing stuff, you know, the ancients knew all this. Anyway, so 1 foot of Ophiuchus is in there, another foot is standing on the Scorpion, on the red star, called Antares. And Ophiuchus means serpent bearer, so he's carrying this serpent. Now the serpent's head, serpent's caput, is right next to Libra, the scales of Libra, which is, I've proven, to be the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. That sits on the scale, the equinox. Libra always sits there on the equinox. And when the sun passes through there, the sun is eating from the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, because the sun has come from summer and it goes down to winter through those scales in September. And they are the scales of the judgment of the sun. The sun goes through there and gets judged. And then Scorpio awaits in November, bites the sun, that's Judas Iscariot, backbiter. And then Sagittarius, ruled by Jupiter, is the Garden of Gethsemane, where Peter betrays the Christ 3 times. So, anyway, welcome, Santos. We're glad you're with us today. Thank you once again for your time. Thank you for having me. And we left last week's show. We were talking about...
Oh my gosh, so many things.
So many things. And I think one of the things I wanted to ask you when we came on the show this week, one of our friends, I have a good friend who is a very good astrologer. I like him a lot. He does something called Nostradamus astrology, and he uses a 13th sign, which changes people's astrological sign in a lot of cases. Are you familiar?
Ophiuchus?
Yeah, there you go.
I don't know if that's how you say it, something like that. Ophiuchus?
Yes.
Are you familiar with that?
Absolutely, yes. In my Know Thyself Part 2,
okay.
I draw on the whiteboard. I have a beautiful big whiteboard there, and I draw there the constellation of Ophiuchus. Now, Ophiuchus is a very interesting sign of the zodiac, because it sits there and it certainly does occupy, I think it's 19 degrees of the belt of the zodiac.
Okay.
Wow.
Now, if you see my video presentation, Know Thyself Part 2.
I've seen most of it, not all of it.
Yes, yes. Well, I'm now encouraging the listeners to watch that, and this is what they will see. I draw up the plane of the Milky Way galaxy. Goes straight through the middle of the board. So there you have.
Hi, welcome back to The Broad Perspective here on the Broad Perspective Network. I'm glad you're with us today. or coming back from our commercial break. My name is Vivian Komori,
And I'm Katie Curley Nelson.
and we are being joined with part 2 of Santos Bonacci. And if you didn't catch last week's show, we're not going to spend a lot of time reviewing. We're going to ask you to go to the archives when we're done, and you can watch or listen to last week's show, and it'll get you up to date, because there's a lot of information, and even in this short period of time that we have left for today's show, we're not going to even remotely begin to cover it all.
So you can go to thebroadperspective.com and you
Right.
can go to the archives and look up
And
part
we'll-
1 of the show.
Yes, and we'll have that on the archives. So once again, if you didn't get a chance to hear last week's show, go to the archives and listen to it, and you'll catch up with what we're talking about, because the information that Santos is kindly, very generously, through a lot of research and reading and time and his wisdom, and he's brilliant beyond description, he's sharing it with us, with our listeners today, and we have a really heartfelt gratitude. He's in Melbourne, Australia. He's up in the wee hours of the morning. It's very cold there today, and he's sharing this with us. He's sharing this with us, and he has YouTube sites he's sharing with us as well. And so we really need to express our gratitude, but tune into his YouTube videos. Let him know how much you appreciate this information, because there's not a lot of it out there. I don't think very many people have put the puzzle pieces together to the degree that this man has. And
In the big picture sense.
in the big picture sense, exactly. And what does that mean to us?
The Milky Way galaxy. And going through that at 60 degrees is the ecliptic of the sun.
Right?
That's the path that the sun takes as it goes through the signs of the zodiac. Now, where it crosses the galactic plane, I've drawn this on the board. The galactic plane goes straight through the middle of the board horizontally, and then at 60 degrees, you've got the ecliptic of the sun. Where it crosses, where they intersect, that is the center of the Milky Way galaxy.
Okay.
And Scorpio sits above that, and Sagittarius sits below that. And the arrow of Sagittarius is pointing to that center, and the tail of Scorpio is also pointing to that center. In between the tail of Scorpio and the arrow of Sagittarius is the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And Ophiuchus has 1 foot right there. And superimposed over the Milky Way galaxy, I've put a figure of a serpent eating its tail, the Ouroboros, because that's where it is. In fact, if you see a product by a video by David Flynn has done a lot of research on
How do you spell his last name?
Flynn.
Okay, David Flynn. Okay. Got it.
And he shows how the serpent, the Ouroboros,